When Matt Damon walked onto the set of The View, the energy in the studio was unmistakably upbeat. The Oscar-winning actor known for his iconic roles in Good Will Hunting, The Martian, and the Bourne series was there to promote his latest project, politically charged film with bold messaging about societal divisions and governmental accountability. Seated comfortably beside the co-hosts, Damon looked calm, confident, and ready for the usual round of light banter and promotion. Joy Behar, known for her blunt and opinionated style, welcomed him warmly. But what began as a seemingly normal interview quickly spiraled into a volatile exchange that no one in the studio or watching at home was prepared for. In the span of just a few minutes, the mood shifted from admiration to tension, then to outright hostility, culminating in Damon being asked to leave the stage in an explosive moment that left the audience in stunned silence. Asterisk at first. The conversation was safe. Damon talked about his film, the challenges of producing a politically sensitive story, and the fine line between entertainment and activism. He joked about fatherhood, told a couple of funny stories from the set, and shared his hopes for meaningful change through art. Then, Joy pivoted the conversation. So Matt, your movie tackles corruption and inequality. That's brave. But how do you reconcile that with your own past support for certain politicians and your stance on some pretty controversial issues? Damon's expression shifted slightly, still composed but more alert. Well, Joy, I think it's important to be able to grow. People evolve, and I've tried to be open about that. Joy smiled tightly. But don't you think that evolution came a little late? Especially when people were already paying the price for policies you once defended? The room suddenly felt warmer. The casual tone had cracked, revealing a layer of confrontation. Few expected. Asterisk, Damon replied carefully. I've acknowledged missteps. I've donated 2 causes, used my platform for awareness, and tried to be part of the solution. Isn't that what matters? But Joy was relentless. What matters is accountability. Not just good PR. You can't change public perception by tossing money at a cause and expecting everyone to forget your earlier views. Damon leaned forward. Isn't that what we ask of everyone? To learn to admit when we're wrong? Why is it only performative when I do it? Joy shot back. Because some people are given unlimited passes to course correct, while others are permanently penalized for less. Damon's voice took on a sharper edge. So we're not talking about me anymore, are we? You're using me as a proxy for a system you don't like. The crowd responded with nervous chuckles and murmurs. Sonny Hostin tried to moderate the tone, but by then, friction between Damon and Behar had become the central focus. Asterisk, Joy didn't let go. If you want to be a change agent, Matt, then why not address the hypocrisy head-on? Criticize systemic failures in your film, but supported politicians who perpetuated those very failures. Damon's jaw clenched. I've addressed this in interviews, in writing, and with my wallet. What more do you want, blood? Joy shrugged. Maybe just honesty without spin. Damon looked straight at her. Honesty. I've been more transparent than most in this industry. But it seems like no matter what I say, you've already made up your mind. Joy smirked. We just expect consistency from our so-called allies. Damon's frustration boiled over. You don't want consistency. You want a target. You want a headline. And you're using this show to bait me into giving it to you. The audience grew tense. It was no longer a disagreement, it was a duel of ideologies playing out in real time. Asterisk, at that point, Whoopi Goldberg stepped in, urging both to pull back and keep things respectful. But Damon wasn't having it anymore. You invite guests on to talk about their work, but the minute someone says something that doesn't fit your narrative, you ambush them. That's not journalism, it's performance art. Back, and you think Hollywood isn't performance art? Please, y'all want applause for doing the bare minimum. Damon stood up, his mic still on. I didn't come here for applause. I came here to talk about a film that means something to me. But clearly that's not what you wanted. Whoopi tried again to intervene, but Damon had already begun removing his mic. If this is the standard now, count me out, he said, turning toward the back of the stage. The audience gasped as he walked off. The live broadcast cut to commercial far earlier than scheduled, Social media erupted almost instantly. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, racking up millions of views. Hashtags like Matt Damon's Joy Behar clash and the View disaster dominated trending topics. Viewers were divided. Some hailed Damon for standing his ground against what they saw as calculated provocation. Others sided with Joy, praising her for holding celebrities accountable and refusing to let powerful voices off the hook. Political commentators jumped in. Conservative platforms painted Damon as a victim of woke culture turning on itself. Progressive outlets debated whether Damon's track record warranted such scrutiny. Suddenly, the issue was no longer about one interview. It had become a national conversation about redemption, accountability, and the limits of public discourse. The next morning. Damon's spokesperson released a brief statement. Matt Damon appeared on The View to discuss his latest project and regrets that the segment did not reflect the purpose of his visit. He stands by his convictions and remains committed to the causes he supports. The response was polite, measured, but not apologetic. Joy Behar opened the following episode with a pointed remark. "We ask tough questions here. If you don't like that, maybe don't sit at this table." Whoopi, clearly exhausted by the fallout, offered a more conciliatory tone. "Sometimes conversations go off track. We learn. We move on. But the damage was done." The media had its moment, and neither side seemed ready to let it go. Journalists analyzed the body language, the vocal inflections, the underlying tensions. Panel discussions debated whether The View had become too combative for its own good. Opinion pieces flooded websites, asking whether the public expected too much from celebrities or if celebrities had become too thin-skinned for the spotlight they court. Damon's defenders pointed to his philanthropy, his advocacy for clean water, and his efforts to speak out against inequality. His critics countered with examples of tone-deaf remarks and inconsistent political stances. As always, the truth was more complex than either side wanted to admit. But the moment had already been frozen in time. Matt Damon standing, glaring, then walking away from the table that had once welcomed him. Privately, sources claimed Damon was furious not just with the interview, but with himself for engaging. He reportedly told close friends that he felt set up and misled about the direction of the conversation. The View's producers, meanwhile, stood by the segment. "We don't script emotions," one insider said. What happened was authentic, and people connected with that, good or bad. And indeed, ratings for that episode skyrocketed. Viewership climbed by nearly 20%, and the clip became the most watched View moment of the year. The fallout extended beyond entertainment. It reignited debates about cancel culture, the performative nature of celebrity activism, and the increasingly blurred line between personal growth and public accountability. In the end, the clash between Matt Damon and Joy Behar became more than just a viral moment. It reflected a growing frustration on both sides of the cultural divide: celebrities feeling trapped by expectations they can't meet, and audiences demanding more than polished sound bites. Damon's stormy exit symbolized a breaking point, not just for him, but for a generation of public figures who feel constantly scrutinized, regardless of their intentions. Meanwhile, Joy Behar's unwavering approach raised its own questions about journalistic integrity and the ethics of confrontation. The dust may have settled, but the impact remains. Whether one sees Damon as a victim of media aggression or a symbol of accountability dodged, there's no denying it. What happened on The View that day will be remembered as a turning point in the evolving relationship between fame, responsibility, and truth.